Why biracial Americans should travel internationally, specifically to Europe, because that's where I went. Now, growing up as a biracial American as a kid, it's a very unique experience, I have to say. You don't really quite fit into one group. You know, you're not black enough for the black kids, and you're not white enough for the white kids, in my experience, because I'm half black and half white. And I think all the other biracial people watching this video can sort of agree with this, that there wasn't really one group that you could really, fit into. And that's why traveling internationally can really widen your horizon. You're already a person who's used to growing up, sort of alone and by yourself and secluded from other groups. And by the time you're an adult, it's already kind of your forte. And to really open your eyes in this world, I think just in general, traveling internationally is helpful for anyone growing up when you're stomping ground in these other countries, because you already don't fit in and you kind of realize that that's sort of the norm over there. They always have tourists traveling to their countries and they're very welcoming to people like you. And one of the main things that I personally learned while traveling internationally is when you are interacting with these individuals in these other countries, they don't see you as a race. Growing up in America, race is the big differentiator when you're growing up and interacting with kids, but they don't see you as a race. They don't see you as black or white or Asian or Indian or anything in between. At first, when you're traveling, you're probably going to be very self-conscious and self-aware about that kind of tidbit that, oh, you're a black man in this white country. So the first thought they're going to have about you is that you're some black person. And that's really not the case. When I was going to Ukraine or Romania, the first thought people had about me was they expected that I spoke Romanian or Russian. They speak Russian in Ukraine. That's a whole other story that we got to talk about later. But there were people that were not expecting me to speak American until they started hearing me speak English. That's the funny part about internationally traveling. You get to see what other people's perspectives of you other than what an American would see about you. And you start to realize that the American perception, or the perspective that Americans have, is quite close-minded, and that's really a minority of what the world would perceive you as. Well, that's my first reason on why I think biracial Americans should internationally travel. And my second reason why you should travel is you get the cultural experience other than America. America has a specific culture that is way different from these European cultures. And in my personal opinion, it's much better, but that's not for this video. There are pros and cons to each, but the way that I was talking to these people and how welcoming they were, as opposed to growing up in America, and there was almost these cliques that were happening, these exclusive groups that you had to meet some certain criteria to be a part of. It's not really like that in these European countries. That could be on the basis of me being an American already, so there may be some influence on that. The American dollar was more powerful than the dollar that they had in their countries, so they probably thought some type of way about that. But I didn't really mind that. It was a very great experience that I'm not really used to in America. I did go out a lot more while I was out there because I just wanted more bang for my buck, like for my trip. Like, it was like a one time in a life experience, I'm gonna get the most out of it. And I was very encouraged to go out, eat out, and experience what life was outside at night. And when you're in America, it's not really encouraged that you do that, especially as a New York City dweller. It's, not as fun. Another reason why biracial Americans should internationally travel is learning the roots of that culture, learning the rich history of that country. especially when you're visiting the country of your ethnicity. When you're growing up in America, since America is such a young country, there really isn't much of a history to look back at other than the history that they teach us in school. I did not go to the country of my ethnicity, but the people of Ukraine and Romania were very open to explaining the history that they had. And you get to learn a lot about the cultural norms that were very effective back then, and some norms that and some norms that sort of still hold up today. Like in America, there's a very highway centric life, and you're almost encouraged to own a car. You sort of have to own a car when you're living in America. Not in New York, because we're built different, but in most of other states in America, you can't really live life without a car. As opposed to in Europe, there's very walkable cities in Europe. I found myself walking everywhere and not really having the need to take public transport, even though that's what most of the people do there, because they don't have a car. But when you're going to somewhere far in these countries, then yeah, you sort of do need to take the bus or the metro or train, whatever transport. But you could sort of get by just walking around, and there wasn't many parking lots around, so you barely have a place to even park a car. You almost don't even want to have a car. Perhaps if I was living in these countries, I would probably be more thoughtful of whether you need to own a car. But walkable cities, they're kind of great over there. America here, not so much with the walkableness. Another reason why biracial Americans should be internationally traveling is they're easier to build a connection with. Especially when you're American going to another country. I think they're very open to wanting to be friends over there. If you're in America, the American culture is to stay secluded, stay isolated, very anti-social life here. If you walk up to someone in America who lives in America, not talking about a foreigner visiting America, they almost don't want to talk to you unless you're already someone who is known, if you have some sort of social status or some clout. But when you're talking to people in these other countries, they want to be your friend. It is a very strange phenomenon. But when I was over there, I built a connection with a suitcase lady. And now I have a suitcase connect, because my suitcase broke while I was over there. And I made a friend, I forgot it, Georgetta. It was a Romanian lady. And she said whenever I need a suitcase, she told me swing by her place. We'll see if I'm ever in Bucharest again, but it was a very good time, and she was trying to assure that people were nice to me in the country. She was very curious about people's attitudes. I didn't meet too many mean people in Romania, but there were a couple situations that I think would be perfect stories for another video. And my last reason on why biracial Americans should solo travel is because you finally get a chance to let loose. In America, personally, I feel that I'm always uptight and feeling like I have to present myself in a way that gets people to not judge me in a certain way. But in Europe, these European countries, they almost don't care of what you look like. They're mostly minding their own business and going about their work if they're working, or just enjoying the walk that they're on, or just not really caring or judging in any sort of way. As long as you're not, doing some sort of social faux pas, or some taboo. Please don't go to these countries to do taboos. But when you're in these countries, I really felt like I could be myself in some weird way. I didn't feel like I had to appeal to someone. And that's why I will always encourage people to travel internationally and solo. You have to do it solo, because when you're traveling with another person, I don't like having to wait for people. There's always going to be some schedule conflict when you're with someone else. You're always going to be wanting to do different things. Um, it's just an overall not ideal situation, and they probably won't even want to always travel at all. I have a lot of friends that just want to stay in America, which if you're interested in me reading off statistics of how many people actually even have a passport to travel outside of America, you can click over here. Click over here to watch that video. It was my first video on this channel, and I will see you guys in the next video to talk more about internationally traveling. See you guys later.